Hi, everyone. Welcome to Tech Over Coffee. I'm Dave.
I'm Jeremy.
We are so fortunate to have Jeremy with us. Jeremy has a vast array of knowledge on very important tech-based topics, even business topics. He'll be joining us for a good portion of our segments going forward. And so, Jeremy, we're excited to have you with us.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here, as always.
And you have this creative idea. Ben started this Tech Over Coffee theme, and I've seen you take it to a new level. What do we have here with us?
So this will be Tech Over Dr. Pepper.
All right, and so I guess I have the Diet Coke, so, well, cool. I'm going to work my way up to Dr. Pepper. That's my goal.
Well, you gotta start with your AA, then you get your bachelor's, and you just kind of move on from there.
That's right. So that's where I'm headed. So great idea. We have some neat topics for those of you who are going to be watching or listening our podcast. And we want to also thank Chipola College for sponsoring, for providing this opportunity here on campus in the studios to talk about tech ideas, talk about research, talk about business practices, and to share these with you. On campus, we have so many opportunities, even virtually in our online learning environment as well, with, as Jeremy just talked about, with certificates, associates, and bachelor's degrees. It was neat to have Ben. Ben is a graduate of the program, and Jeremy will soon be a graduate as well. It's great having him in classes and sharing ideas. We've done research together, and Jeremy just has so much knowledge. We are truly blessed and fortunate to have him with us with Tech Over Coffee and at Chipola College.
Thank you. You really talked me up. I love it.
Well, it's true. So we're excited. So Jeremy, get us going. What kind of topics do you have for us today?
Sure. So today I think we're going to be talking about autonomous, semi-autonomous. I'll start that one again. So today we're going to be talking about autonomous, semi-autonomous, and driver assistance features. So these are things in cars that are, preventing you from exiting your lane, things that help you make driving easier, prevent collisions, things like that.
And as your MO, something that you do well is you go right to the heart of an issue. So the broad topic is just driver-assisted vehicles, those that do the driving for you. But in reality, today that's not true, not even close to being true. Yeah. So they're broken into these categories that you just defined for us.
Right. So there are different levels of self-driving. So there's no real true self-driving car, right? Like everything today still requires a person to be behind the wheel, making sure that it's safe. But there are companies like Google and Tesla that are working on making these features fully capable. But to do that requires a lot of research and a lot of sensors and input.
It seems like there's a demand. I know, Jeremy, we often talk about many topics. Jeremy is a local leader for mining, Bitcoin, best practices, and my goodness, and is now maybe he's always had an interest in cars, automobiles, has an incredible Tesla that he'll share on campus and with fellow people when time permits.
Yeah.
So this idea of being busy, of being focused in many areas, it kind of just leads in a way to needing autonomous vehicles because we're so busy. We're working on, I can't stop my car. I need to finish this text message.
Yeah.
I got to do this email, which sounds a little odd, but that's how we are now, is we're working on so many things.
The other option is to have a driver up front for you doing it instead. So what you can do is, don't sit in the back of your Rolls Royce, just being driven around everywhere. Get a computer to do it for you so you don't have to have this other person just driving for you instead.
Talking about Rolls Royce, I think we haven't really brought Eric into this conversation too much. You're talking about him and his vehicle, right? His Rolls Royce.
Yes.
I've met his driver before. He's a nice gentleman. I forget who his driver is, but right, for most of us, we don't have that Rolls Royce.
I think his name might be Ben.
Ben, no,
I think that's who it was.
Right. But so we're busy. So autonomous vehicles actually serve a need.
Right.
And the need isn't just a generic. This vehicle can drive for you. It's broken down into these three categories,
right?
Which are hard to say all in a row. So I'm not going to ask you to do that
quite
again.
Quite a bit. Let's see if I can do it. So we're talking about autonomous, semi-autonomous, and driver assistance features.
So would you like to break those down for us?
So those are going to be things that are like lane keeping, lane centering, active emergency braking, and I can't think of anything else.
Well, you have the smart cruise.
Right, yes, and radar adaptive cruise control. So these are features that you combine together to basically allow the car to sense any cars in front of it, read lane lines and keep it within that set of parameters. So pretty much on a day-to-day, when you're driving, really all you're doing is modulating speed so you're not crashing into people. You're activating your brakes when you really need to slow down, and you're steering to make turns and whatnot. And there aren't many things today that will handle turns, but there's a lot of things that can handle simple straight lane driving. And that's through, GM has a feature called Super Cruise, which is basically using LiDAR, which is laser mapping for roads. So they send a separate vehicle out with this fancy doohickey on the top of the vehicle. People may have seen them on like the Google self-driving cars. And that's, Google acquired a company called Waymo. And Waymo was doing LiDAR. So LiDAR takes lasers, they map the roads, so basically you have a perfect computer-generated map that you can basically send the car down. It's like, I know where the center of the lane is, and that's where it goes. And
So the challenge now would be an unrecognized road, like a dirt road. That would be hard for the technology.
Right, that would be hard for that, and that's why Super Cruise is actually locked down to specific roads that they've mapped. And that's where you get into a secondary feature. So Tesla doesn't actually really like LiDAR. Elon Musk himself has said that LiDAR is just like a crutch, because pretty much what you're doing is spending a lot of money and bulky equipment to perfectly map this out. And that's great, but you can't map the entire world.
You have to respect Elon when he, just looking at his research in general, say with SpaceX, we just had the astronauts come back, landed in the Gulf near Pensacola, but when they took off, and when he's interviewed, he says space exploration will depend on being able to recycle these boosters.
Yep.
And he had that booster land perfectly on the robotic ship out at sea. So the
Self-driving
guy is a
rockets.
serious researcher, and he wants to do it right. So not
Yeah.
just take what's available.
And I mean, it's the same sorts of technologies that are used there too, because you're using an array of sensors to, with the rocket, guide its way back down. And nobody else was really thinking about, well, yeah, let's reuse a rocket. Let's just dump it into the ocean. And same guy is trying to do stuff with electric cars and self-driving cars. His whole goal is to try to have a self-driving like taxi fleet that you can sign up to with your Teslas, which could be pretty cool. You get home, your car drives off and picks somebody up and makes money for you.
So after what you just said, Jeremy, there's quite a few topics. So I'm going to try to move fast.
Yeah.
And these are just, to me, and they're kind of scattered. I know you love research, you love investing. So the thought of SpaceX, going back to Elon Musk and his research, seems like the best way to invest in SpaceX right now is a play in Alphabet, of actually, because they're one of the larger owners of stock in SpaceX,
Sure.
Of the company. So buying Google really is the best way to kind of own some SpaceX, because right now it's still
Right.
a private company.
Well, I mean, and if you're talking about like self-driving tech, Google is a big proponent of that. They're doing a lot of research into that stuff, and big investments in these big technology areas. I definitely would want to look into investing into SpaceX.
And then the thought of having an ability to take the business application of it. And in a previous podcast, we talked about Amazon buying Zoosk.
Yes.
Kind of talk about another tough word to
think
say.
it's Zoox,
Two O's.
maybe? I'm not sure.
How do you say that again?
I think it might be Zoox, Z-O-O-X.
Okay, Zooks. I like that. That sounds better, easier to say. So the thought there, a multi-billion-dollar purchase for Amazon, I think their second largest purchase after Whole Foods.
Yeah.
And the thought was to maybe go after Uber and stuff when you talk about having these autonomous vehicles that can provide transportation for people, say in cities and other predefined areas. Even though the technology is not there, they're actually a company that's doing it from the ground up, so they're not taking an easy approach, so that's a positive. And then the thought, this analyst, one financial analyst said, is that think of the distribution. So if Amazon can solve this with autonomous vehicles of having their own warehouses taken all the way to distribution points or even right to customers, I mean, wow, that changes the whole game. So this autonomous concept, I don't know if it's $1 trillion idea, but it is a multi-billion dollar idea.
It's very big because, I mean, especially when you're looking at the commercial sector, which a lot of these companies really are focusing on. It's like the things that go on in the commercial sector trickle down into the consumer sector. So the stuff that's being developed for like normal consumer cars, doesn't really compare to the stuff that they're trying to put into delivery trucks and things like that. Because if you can reduce the amount of labor required for these things, like all automation, you reduce costs and you make more money.
That's right. So there's some really powerful drivers impacting this. And going back to just a driver like ourselves, so I've had a chance to experience with a smart cruise before, and it's interesting how that'll just break. You forget that it's on, and you get too close, or you're passing, it'll then accelerate again.
Yeah.
Their technology is already out there,
Right.
but it seems like we're still not quite there for a fully autonomous vehicle quite yet.
Yeah, it's a hard problem to solve because there are just so many edge cases, and that's the thing that we as people are really good at. We're able to, sit and determine in a split second, oh, that person's turning, that person's going to stop, and you can figure that out before it happens. But with a computer, it's not necessarily seen that before. So these two different approaches to self-driving and autonomous cars is either full-on like laser mapping the world, or training algorithms, machine learning algorithms, to actually basically learn how to drive. And that's what Tesla's doing, and that's what a favorite of mine, a open source project called Comma, is doing. So they are using systems that are available. Toyota, Nissan, Hyundai, a lot of different companies have all of these different assistive features. But if you tie them all together using this open source project, basically, you can take a Android phone, which is what this is, and it has a camera on the front and then a camera on the back to watch the road and then watch the driver. You watch the driver to make sure that they're paying attention and doing everything, and then the camera on the road finds the lanes and keeps the car in the lanes. And what you're doing is using the car's systems that are already there, that the auto manufacturers have already put into place, things like electronic steering, electronic braking, radar, and sensors, and tying them together to make a car able to go down the road without you having to hold the steering wheel. It's like a normal cruise control for your car, but it's for the steering wheel. It's pretty cool.
So Comma AI, it's an app to start
Right.
with, open source app, and it then connects to the CPU of the car itself.
Pretty much. So
And-
you have the different car systems, and they're all running on a what's called a CAN bus. So that's where basically the car's computer is sending signals back and forth, and that's pretty standard across the industry. So you're able to hook into the onboard computer, the diagnostic computer, and then that, if your car has access to it, can then connect to the electronic power steering and move the steering wheel back and forth.
So that is a fascinating app and company, and they're still private, right? Comma
Right.
AI.
Right, and the way that they've done it, a lot like Tesla, and they kind of took a lot of inspiration from Tesla, because the originator, George Hotz, actually was almost contracted by Tesla to make a self-driving feature, because Tesla has gone through about 3 iterations on their self-driving, or autopilot as they call it. The original was a level 1, and it was produced by a company called Mobileye. And Mobileye pretty much used a combination of LiDAR mapping and AI to scan the roads and use a camera and radar to perform all of those functions. And what they did is replace the Mobileye system with this, what they call an Eon, or later versions, Comma 2, or whatever you can come up with. People have figured out how to run it on laptops. You can run it on NVIDIA, like single board computers. But what they do is, originally, they had people connect these to their car, watch the road, and just watch how they turn and steer. So it's connected to the diagnostic computer. It was reading how you turn the steering wheel and all of that, and connecting that with the video, and then running it through this machine learning program.
So creating a baseline for the machine learning
Right.
to actually build on.
Yeah, so
just like
it understands how a person drives because they've watched it. And Tesla did the exact same thing. And it's every car, every Tesla had cameras, and they'd watch people drive and they'd learn how to do it, and it gets better and better over time because they feed that information back into the system. So over time, it basically does what a person does. Like a person, when you're driving, you don't have a radar and a laser system to know like a car is going at this kilometers per hour and this GPS coordinates. You don't have all of that. It's just eyes and feel.
It's
And-
amazing how technology has improved. Early 2000s, working with the DoD research labs, we were looking at evolutionary algorithms,
Right.
autonomous learning, just to have robots go through a maze.
Yeah.
And to take that learning, say 15 years later or so, and put that in a car.
Yeah.
The challenge is you have a zero fault rate. I mean, you can't have even one accident because that's
Right.
going to be too many.
Well,
So the
that's-
bar is really high to cross.
Yeah, the safety standards are super high because any failure is a failure of the car, right? So with the Comma AI system, everything is running off of stuff that the manufacturers already put in. They're following all the ISO standards and all of that stuff. And any faults fall back on you, so then it basically cuts the system out. It won't take away your ability to steer. If you want to take over at any point, you grab the steering wheel and you take over. So and it's also torque limited too. So if you put it in a car that has no limits on the steering wheel, well, what if it accidentally spins at 180 and your
That's
car goes
right.
out? It can't do that.
So there's still great momentum out there interested in autonomous vehicles. There's that classic YouTube video of that couple in California on the interstate just sleeping and
Yeah.
the Tesla's moving. And
Yeah.
there's not really pure reality to that. It's kind of some fancy filming.
It's a little bit of some tricks and plays. And with Tesla's system, they don't have anything watching the driver. Later, I think newer cars actually have cameras inside the cabin, but they don't have any driver monitoring set up because Tesla's version is basically wiggle the steering wheel or move a knob to prove that you're awake. And that's pretty much it. But every 15 seconds or so, it nags you, and people call it wheel nag. With Toyota systems, they basically don't even allow you to do that. They will require you to keep your hand on the steering wheel, but it is doing all of the stuff, but often it's not quite right, and it will ping pong from one lane to the other and back and forth because those systems are possibly not actual lane centering, but instead lane keeping. So it's very minute changes in terms, but it's a matter of what the manufacturer decided to allow the car to do.
And either way, it's going to be important to have the driver involved in the process. It's
Yeah.
going to be quite a period of time before the driver will just
Right.
actually be sleeping there. You need to have the person engaged just for
Right.
safety reasons.
Mhm.
But at some point, we can see that it might just be a passenger as we would be on a bus or say, or any transportation system. Just not quite there yet. The technology is pulling us there. The technology's there.
It's getting there.
So
It's just a matter of will drivers allow themselves to be replaced.
That's right. It's always fun to drive, but it's also fun to multitask as well. So
Right.
you got to find
Yeah.
that balance.
Well, an importance with the Comma AI system and really any self-driving, because remember, none of these cars drive themselves, you're still the driver, is you have to pay attention to the road. So that's why the driver monitoring on this is making sure that you're not just watching Netflix on your phone instead of making sure that the car's going down or, taking a nap in the back seat. You got to be aware at all times.
The next great YouTube video, right?
Yeah,
So,
the day that they take the steering wheel out of the car, maybe then you can take a nap in the back.
Ooh.
But I'd be a little afraid of that.
most certainly. Well, wow, fantastic topic. As you can tell, we are so fortunate to have Jeremy joining us.
And
Ben,
there's still so much on this topic too, by the way. And don't think that it's just in Teslas. These things are coming to all major automobiles at this point. I mean, every manufacturer is working on something. Tesla just brought it to the forefront.
That's right. We might continue this topic next week. So we have many topics that can branch off of the autonomous vehicle driving and the research behind that. Something I want to research is what is Comma AI using as their programming in the open source environment. Just that by itself would be an exciting topic.
I think that they're using Python.
Nice. And that's something we teach at Chipola. Python's a popular
Very
scripting
powerful
language. It's very dynamic. So many neat topics. And Ben, you're welcome to join us whenever you can.
Yes.
So that's open invitation. We'll have
I've
Jeremy
taken
with
your
us.
place, Ben.
No, we're a team. Yeah, but we are fortunate to have Jeremy. As you can tell, he is quite knowledgeable. So, Jeremy, I enjoyed it, man.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. This was so much fun.
All right.